Today we're going to go and get a new pannier rack for the e-bike, and I'm going to show you how to fit it. It'll work for any giant or live hardtails. So here's a solution to fit a pannier rack like this to the back of any hardtail, giant or live mountain bike or e-mountain bike. So first things first, there's a little rack mount at the back here. There's no rack mount on the frame up the top. So basically, to fit a rack mount on the frame up the top, you're going to need something that looks a little bit like this. This is a seat clamp with some additional little bolt holes on it here. This one, for this bike, the giant seat clamps are 35mm or 34.9 34.9mm, so this is the 35mm giant seat clamp. Okay, so you can either get a 35 or 34.9mm one of these, or if they're unavailable like what I've done, I've got a 31.8 little seat clamp, and I've got to file off the little ridge. I'll see if you can get it to focus. File off this little ridge inside. You can probably see a bit there where I've started to file it. File off this little ridge on the 31.8 seat clamp and run this on the seat post in addition to the normal seat clamp. So this is going to end up a little bit above it. It's my workaround because there's no 34.9 ones of these available in my local area, and my wife needs a clamp for a rack for her panniers tomorrow so that she can ride her e-bike to work. Next thing, you're going to have to buy a compatible rack. Now this one has a wider spacing at the bottom. For discs, this is kind of a normal one. And you'll notice that this rack here and this rack here are slightly different spacings. Okay, this one's actually been bent out a little bit to try and make it fit. But this is one that's designed to be used with discs, so there's a slightly different spacing between here and here, and also the rack itself is further out, so it clears the top of the disc caliper on the bike. So you have to get a disc specific pannier rack itself to make sure that there's space for the caliper to go in here without it rubbing. So I've chosen a Topic Super Tourist DX disc. Now this will work on your giant or live hardtail e-bike. Let's get it fitted. The fitting process for this rack is really simple, and let me quickly take you through it. First of all, you're going to pull this little bag of accessories off. I'm going to snip these zip ties so I can reuse them. So here's the bag of accessories. Crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. These are the mounts that are going to go from the top of the rack at the front onto the little clamp. And these are the bolts. Today I'm even going to use the instructions. It's a bit novel. So the instructions show us mounting into this hole here. That hole here we don't have, so that's what's been replaced with this little bracket. Now because I've got the wrong size, I'm going to quickly off camera file this one down so that this little ridge on the inside is gone and it can clamp straight onto the actual seat post itself. Now this bad boy is going to fit straight over the seat post rather than as the seat clamp. And then I'm going to put the seat post back in the bike. We'll just gently knit this up to start with. Next thing we've got to do is put the pannier rack itself onto the bike. This step in the instructions here. We're going to be adding these little brackets that mount between the pannier rack and the bolts on the seat post. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the threads of the bolt and a little bit of grease on the threads of the frame to try and isolate the steel bolt from the aluminium frame so that they don't bond together, and that'll mean that I can get them back off again one day. At this point here, having that third hand would be absolutely spectacular, but I guess I'm going to have to make do with a third leg. Knit that up and I'll loosen it a little bit so that I can get this into the exact position I want it in. Now I've just nipped those bolts on the side up just tight enough that it will hold its own weight, and I'm going to be able to position these little brackets here bolted onto these two little holes in the bottom of the top plate of the pannier rack, so that they can go here to here and it will sit exactly upright in the perfect position. I think the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm working on my own and I can't just grab someone to hold it, I'll quickly bolt the one on the back of the seat post on it first. I'll do that on both sides and then I'll be able to bolt it up to hold it all solid. Now, there's some little washers that come with this, so I'm going to use a little washer on the bolt. Chuck the bolt in here. There's never been anything in that thread, so it's a bit stiff. But it's definitely not misthreaded. I will tighten this one up until it's just past tight enough to stay in place. Oops. Then we'll be super boring and we'll do the same thing exactly on the other side. Now we've just got these on, they're nipped up, they're not super tight, so that we can still manoeuvre them around a little bit and get them into the exact right spot. And these little bits of stainless steel are kind of a little bit flexible, so it allows us to bend them into the exact shape we need to attach to these little bolt holes here. When we attach the luggage rack to these little brackets, we use these lock nuts on the bolts at the bottom. You see there's a little a nylon ring in this nylon nut, and that basically it means that it's not going to come undone with a little bit of vibration. So it's going to, before you tighten it, it's going to look something like this. You've got this nylon nut, a little washer, the bracket, and then the bracket's pushed hard up against the rack itself. Then there's a little washer and then a bolt on the top. Now I'm going to hold this nut on the bottom and turn the bolt on the top, and I'll do that off camera because I don't have so many hands that it's, you know, same joke about a third leg. Now that we've got one of those in and tightened up, I can see that the rack could do with being tilted forward just ever so slightly to get it completely level. We could do this with a spirit level, but I'm just going to do it by eye. So this was the last chance to level it up. I'm going to slide it just till about... What do you think that looks like? It's still a little bit far back. Tiny bit more. How's that? That's beautiful, isn't it? That looks nice and straight. Now I'm quickly making sure that there's a hole all the way through here for the other bolt, and it doesn't line up with this little piece here between the slots. Looks perfect, so I don't have to adjust it again. After that you put the other three bolts in between the rack and the stainless steel mount, and then tighten everything up at the same time so that it's all tight and it's all in the right place. However, if you forget to restart your camera and pretend to record it, then you can't really get very good footage. So here's the finished article. We've got a Giant or Live e-bike. There's the Yamaha motor there. And we've got a Topeak rear pannier rack. The rack is mounted on the rear threads and it's mounted on a little seat post clamp. This is an adapted one that I've added on instead of a normal 34.9 seat clamp or 35mm seat clamp. And this thing is super solid, it's not going anywhere, and I'd probably stick easily 20 kilograms of luggage on it quite happily. And that's what it's going to look like with my wife's cool little bags on it. I think that's a pretty good looking bike. I think that's a good job, and I hope you manage to do it to your own e-bike yourself. These are a brilliant transport solution, and they're also not too bad on some easy off-road trails. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. This is going to be a project e-bike, so after we've taken it for a couple of off-road runs, I'm going to start the major upgrades, such as forks and brakes and maybe wheels and all sorts of stuff.